Well, there's 6 altogether that either had someone involved in the wreck or a child that died. So James was the only one that survived. His parents, Michael and Evelyn Stewart, are quite complex characters, and they're both heavily involved in the storylines, have essentially plot lines of their own because of their relationships with James.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other parents are a little more disconnected. One who knows James very well is the father of Ben, his best friend, James's best friend, who dies in the wreck. And Ryan is a firefighter, and he actually comes on the scene, and he's probably the most traumatized of all the parents, in part because he finds his son and takes him to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and then he dies in the hospital. And he's the last person that is willing to forgive James at the end of the film. So that storyline is central to the whole film, the whole series. And his relationship with his wife, she helps him deal with that, so she's supportive. But ultimately, that is probably the hardest. All the other families have very similar journeys because they also are struggling with dealing with their loss, mm-hmm. and trying to come to terms, if they can, with forgiving James, because they all know him. Mm-hmm. And their children were all part of the same group, which is not atypical in these wrecks. A lot of times that happens, right? And the way they handle it is different. That's the more interesting part. So in the first part of the series, we just see them being parents. But in the second part of the series, when James is in prison, there's a lot of cutting back and forth between what's going on in the prison and their challenges in the community dealing with this, right? Mm-hmm. But most of them the same church, so they're trying to deal with it and not just live in hate and anger, which is where a lot of people go. And that was important to tell that story, because the people who can learn to forgive can come to terms with that in a much healthier way than people that just live and become angry and bitter about it. And we probably all know people that struggle with this. So that's a major theme in the film, is forgiveness and how it plays out. Mm-hmm. And the parents gave us opportunities to explore different ways people face that struggle. Some overcome it more easily than others, and then they actually can help each other. Having that many parents in the story was a little intimidating to me, because I go, what are they going to all talk about? But when I got to that part of the series, that problem solved itself, because those conversations between the parents illustrated exactly what was going on in their minds and how they were feeling and how they were, in some cases, helping each other deal with it. Mm-hmm. And that makes this a much richer and more fascinating story.